Hello, and welcome to another episode of It's the Pictures. My name is Evan Crean, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Max Colville.
How you doing?
How you doing, Max?
I'm doing good.
You finally taking advantage of the warm weather that seems to be gracing us here in New England?
Yeah, it's on and off, but Evan, I did want to share that what I did the other day is it was like
Yeah.
independent bookstore day on Saturday,
Oh, okay.
and I went to a local bookstore and had a fun time. I didn't necessarily buy myself a lot of stuff, but I bought stuff for other people and felt good about it.
Oh, nice. Did you, was it primarily like movie-related books, or did you find other stuff that was interesting?
So I bought a lot of stuff that's like science fiction and fantasy because that's like what my family kind of likes, kind of some like romance type of books too. I actually picked up a nonfiction book that kind of interested me that came out, I guess, late last year, and it's called The Anxious Generation, and it's all
Mm-hmm.
about teens using tablets and the internet and anxiety and depression and light stuff, but
Yeah, of course.
I
Light
I
topics.
I thought it was kind of interesting, and certainly by the time our kids are grown up, maybe they'll have another book out for more timely purposes, but I'm just kind of interested in how the youth today lives and came into this world of social media when you and I never did.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I who knows what things will look like when our kids reach that age. We still have a couple of years before we get there, but it will be interesting to see how things are different even between now and then. But yeah, I do wonder cuz like I don't think I know anybody that's like in that age group right now. Like I come from a big family on my mom's side and have a lot of younger cousins, but even my youngest cousins now have made it into their like late mid to late 20s, so
Hmm.
very far away from like the teenage world. So, yeah, I'm sure
Yeah,
that book will be an interesting read.
Yeah, we have a group of friends that they have all have kids that are turning 12 this year. So I'm like, this is definitely right in that age group. So
Yep. On the cusp. And then you can finish reading and go, "Here you go, friends. Here's
yeah.
something you should read about." Get smart on this topic.
Well, it's funny because like so many of them are like either their kids are playing like games like Roblox or Fortnite or Minecraft. Those are kind of the big three, I guess, outside of stuff like Apex Legends and stuff. But
Mhm.
just knowing like what kind of communities there are out there and what they're being kind of connected with was so different from us, Evan. Like I think like our experience, given our ages, we were just at the infancy of the internet and what it could possibly do, and now it's just like, oh, you want to find something, you can find it.
Yeah, it's true. In our and we had to put in the effort of, using the dial up and making sure nobody needed the phone or wanted to be on the phone to get at the internet in the first place. And yeah, there was a lot less to do and see, and our video games we would play amongst ourselves at home. It's not like generally we had any connectivity to anyone else playing in the world. It's just like who's there in your house who will play video games with you, and which friends can you invite over to come play. Hours of Super Smash Brothers on N64. That was one of my
Right.
favorite pastimes of the middle school and high school and even college years.
Right, and so much of it was like there was one family computer for everyone in the house who would like use it in a central location. And nowadays, it's like your phone
Yep.
is essentially a computer, and everybody has one in their rooms at all time.
Mhm. Yep. It's true. I mean, even my 1.5-year-old knows that the phone is the gateway to cute baby and puppy videos because she'll just look at the phone and look at us and say babies or puppies. So that's where we're at. she she wants to watch cute baby and puppy and other animal videos on our phones. That's cool that you support an independent bookstore. I feel like it used to have a good radar for like those types of events, like record store day and stuff, and then
Yeah.
or like comic book store day, and I just totally like miss those now, and then find out later like, oh man, I could have gone, gotten a comic or a record or gone to support an independent bookstore. Whoops.
Well, Comic Book Day is coming because it's usually like right after Star Wars Day, which is May 5th. So it's usually like tied
Mm,
into like that same weekend. So I think it's if it's not next weekend, then it's the weekend after. So keep an eye out for that
to
if you're
look
interested.
out for that. Yeah, for sure. Actually, I was like, I don't even have my like home base since I moved, a few years ago to the town I live in. I don't even know what my local comic book store should be or my, place of choice. I got to do some research.
Yeah, and it's fun. Like local libraries even participate because I remember one year I took my daughter to one of them, and then they had a whole bunch of like free comics available, and they had a Frozen comic for the young ones. So
Ooh, nice. Yep, that's cool. Well, should we dive into the current news in the movie
sure.
world? All right. Well, why don't we start off with the story out there about Sinners, which is Ryan Coogler's new movie with Michael B. Jordan. I don't know a ton about this movie, although I did hear it's about vampires.
Yeah, and
Um.
I had a chance to see it, so I'll be talking about it more later.
Oh, great. Okay, cool. So get the lowdown from you. But anyway, so the reason why it's been in the news is because of its box office. It's an R-rated film, and there were a lot of reports that opening weekend it opened to $45 million, which compared obviously to big stuff like Minecraft and other blockbuster movies, that's a pretty small return. But people were taking pot shots at it, saying, "Oh, it didn't make very much money and this and that," but it's an R-rated movie, and it looks like it's gonna have some staying power at the box office, and it's gonna just be more of like a steady producer in terms of numbers because after opening weekend there's normally a fairly large drop off in terms of returns, and after its first opening weekend, I think it only declined 6%, which is like pretty big deal because there's not even a lot of movies out there that have I think it came in like third place in terms of like lowest decline from opening to the second weekend, and the movies in front of it are Shrek and Avatar, which is really interesting, and those came out around holiday weekends. So this didn't even come out on a holiday weekend. So that's interesting unto itself. So I think this movie is definitely gonna have some staying power, which is good because why not? It's an R-rated movie. It's Ryan Coogler. He's doing something outside of his the Black Panther or the we're not seeing a Creed movie, so it's like outside of those, it's its own thing. So I think it's pretty cool. But what do you think, Max?
I think what is most interesting about the story outside of it being an R-rated movie is the idea that it's not based on a existing IP. Has Ryan Coogler's
Mm-hmm.
name become that strong of a box office warrior, like compared to Christopher Nolan now? Because is his name selling this movie? Is it Michael B. Jordan selling this movie? Is it the excellent reviews? This is one of the best reviewed films in such a wide release in I think this decade. They said. And so this decade, yeah, still pretty young, 5 years, but
Yep.
that I
It's
think
not
that's
nothing
you're
though.
right. That's still pretty impressive. And they said I think the expectation is that this movie will most definitely be the highest grosser this year for an original IP because there's looking at the schedule, there's not much that would come close or kind of rain on its parade. So I think that's quite an achievement for the movie. I know that like Ryan Coogler like filmed some 70 millimeter sequences for it, or like used 70 millimeter IMAX cameras, and so like there was like very select screens where you could see that. So maybe uh, that kind of commitment to making this movie helped it reach audiences. And then Evan, I also read another story about it where they said it was the way Warner Brothers was able to make the deal is that after 25 years, the rights of Sinners will revert back to Ryan Coogler, and that's like
Wow.
virtually unheard of in theaters outside of like the sweet deal that like Quentin Tarantino used to get because of the Weinsteins and how he kind of put that studio on the map.
Well, that's very cool. Yeah, I've heard some other rumblings, and I haven't verified them, so I don't want to go too much into it. But there's also there are other aspects of the deal that he cut with Warner Brothers that are supposed to be pretty awesome for his sake. So that's interesting to hear that he gets the rights back after X amount of 25 years. You said. I think I think it might just be that yeah, Ryan Coogler has the goods, and I think people are gonna want to see him. I mean, we know Michael B. Jordan, and I think in many ways he is a kind of a commodity, but I don't know if it's as much because I feel like I can think of stuff like there's that terrible movie, that Tom Clancy one, Without Remorse, that he did that just was such a bomb, and I feel like no one saw it or cared about it. So I don't think it was a Michael B. Jordan thing. I think it was more of a Ryan Coog. I think this is more of a Ryan Coogler draw because he's able to deliver these big. He's been able to deliver big blockbuster films that are also like very satisfying on a narrative level, in addition to being very action oriented. So anyway, that's my two cents on it.
Yeah, and I think to that point too, Evan, is also Michael B. Jordan, separated from Ryan Coogler. He did the two other Creed movies, and Creed 3, I don't think came anywhere close to what Sinner's expectations might be at the end of its run.
Mhm. Yeah. All right. Well, that's cool. It will be interesting to see if it continues to hold power at the box office and where it goes. And I'm definitely interested to hear more about it from you later in the episode. So I guess let's transition. We've got a couple of bits of Star Wars news that we wanted to discuss. One of which is that the original cut of Star Wars, the first Star Wars movie, 1977 film, it will be screened at BFI's Film on Film Festival, and it's going to be the original cut. It's not going to be like the special edition version that people love or hate or love to hate or some combination of those. I feel like I'm kind of love to hate. But like also I don't know about you, Max. I feel like when we went to see them, in the late 90s when they re-released them with the special editions, I was kind of like, well, this is exciting. I get to go see Star Wars in the theater. So isn't that awesome? Even if it's a little bit annoying that George Lucas wanted to, tweak them.
Yeah, I think like my thought, Evan, was same as you because when I was first kind of introduced to the Star Wars films and the kind of at-large medium was this when they were re-released in the special editions in theaters. I think why they were available on Laserdisc or VHS beforehand. That was when I was really old enough or like could really get excited about seeing Star Wars in theaters. And so honestly,
Mm-hmm.
when people get excited about seeing the original cut, I can't get as excited. I'm like, I'm sure I would see the differences. Some people are like, oh well, certainly all the CG shots would be would be obvious that the inserts of those
Right.
compared to the original.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like individual like special effects shots, I'm not that well versed on Star Wars as many others are, and I wouldn't be a stickler for it. I mean, like I've come across like the people have taken scans of them and put them online and tried their
Right.
best at like
Yeah.
archiving the original some way, and I've seen like bits and pieces of those, but I don't think I never felt like I was missing something by not seeing the originals, but it's really cool for people who do love that will get an opportunity to see it in theaters. I'm sure it was a very hot ticket. If it's already gone on sale, it's probably not available anymore.
Yeah, I'm sure Star Wars does have that following. I mean, so I was actually really lucky enough to buy the Star Wars edition that they released in 1995, I think it was. They did a VHS release of it that was like a remastered version that they did that they said, this will be Star Wars in its original form for the last time, and I thankfully bought those so I have
Mm,
them and can watch like the originals. I mean, like I don't have my VCR hooked up to watch it, but I have it.
yeah.
And so yeah, I was grateful to at least be able to see them in their original, but also grateful to see them on the big screen. I mean, there was just something so exciting growing up being a fan of Star Wars to be able to see those movies on the big screen, even though they were, the modified versions. And I probably, like you, there would be many things that I would be like, I don't know if I would necessarily catch that, but there's obviously some big ones, like the whole scene with Jabba the Hutt that
Yeah.
they inserted into the first Star Wars movie that was not there in the original because they didn't even have the effects to be able to do it or the budget. And they didn't even really know who Jabba was as a character. I feel like at that point, there's just some like heavy set guy who was walking around.
Yeah,
So
and not only
yeah,
that, Evan, but like to go on to your fandom. I mean, this past weekend, I guess, the third Star Wars movie, Revenge of the Sith, I think was the third prequel film, anyways. It had
right.
a re-release in theaters, and I guess it did like 25 million over the weekend. And it's like, how many people knew that this re-release was even happening? That they came out to the theater to see a
I
movie that
didn't. I
the
just saw
movie,
people posting.
yeah, that they could like just see on Disney
So
Plus at home. So I guess like going to the theater to see Star Wars is still a big deal for people. It's obviously
yeah,
Star Wars is still a big deal. Obviously, Evan, we want the last film news that we have came from Star Wars Celebration, which was like was held in like Japan this year, and
mhm,
I'm sure a lot of people traveled to Japan to be a part of Celebration this year.
yep, that's true. Yeah, the big news out of there is that Ryan Gosling is going to be headlining a new Star Wars film that's going to be directed by Sean Levy of Adam Project and what others? This is where I leave you. Night isn't he
Deadpool,
the Night at the Museum guy too,
Deadpool versus
or am I thinking of
Wolverine
someone
guy.
else? Yep, that guy. Yep. So obviously this is a big deal, Ryan Gosling. It's titled Star Wars Starfighter, and as Max and I were musing off mic before, we're very curious if this is gonna in any way, shape, or form resemble the Star Wars Rogue Squadron project that was that was famously kind of like in and out of the news. I think was it Patty Jenkins was supposedly working on
Yeah.
that, and then it got killed at some point. So it'll be interesting to see what the plot of this one is and if it feels like it anyway resembles what could have been a Rogue Squadron movie. And then for the like non-nerds in the house, like the Rogue Squadron is like a group of X-wing, pilots that in the Star Wars lore have like kind of like the elite like crack squad and gone off on their own adventures. And then like also for the coming back to the nerds again, we had video games where you got to play as people in Rogue Squadron, like the N64 game Rogue Squadron. So
Yeah, and I think that's the problem with so many of these Star Wars projects is like they have announced a lot of them, certainly under Lucas Film and Kathleen Kennedy and company have kind of like said, "Oh, well, we're going to be working on this one, and we have these big name directors. They're working on treatments, and then you don't hear anything for years, and you're like, oh, so there's like 8 movies in some form of development, but none of them have gotten past like any any kind of pre-production stage. I think they made a point during Star Wars Celebration to say that like this one of Ryan Gosling is in pre-production. It's not. It's made past the first stage, so that way people can have more uh, kind of belief that it will actually happen.
yeah, that's true. They kind of have the same problem that Marvel does. They like announce their lineup so far in advance. That a lot of these projects like die on the vine at some point before they even get there. And I feel like they kind of paint themselves into a corner by doing stuff like that.
Right, and I think that's during Celebration they announced a ton of other projects, but notably the last, like, after this new season of Andor that's currently airing, the next like live action thing that they actually have planned is like Ahsoka season 2, and of course the Mandalorian movie that's promised. So
Mm-hmm.
those are the two things. I think like there was a trailer for the Mandalorian movie shown at Celebration. I think I saw
Ooh.
like a bootleg of the trailer circulating. So
Ooh. That's something I'd be interested in. I was a big fan of The Mandalorian. I'm actually, you can't see it, listeners, and Max can't because I'm wearing a sweatshirt over it, but I'm wearing my Boba Fett t-shirt today, so that should tell you something. All right, well, I feel like we've gabbed a lot about the news. Perhaps we should move on to our feature tonight, which is we're going to talk about baseball movies because, 'tis the season for baseball, right? We just kind of kick things off. Like I know in the Boston area, Red Sox usually kind of like line up their opening around, the Boston Marathon, somewhere in there. So,
yeah,
yeah, we
Boston
wanted
Marathon was
to
just
talk
last
about some
week.
baseball movies. Mm-hmm. And I know, Max, you've been watching some baseball movies, but before we like kind of delve into some of our, favorites, some of the ones we wanted to talk about, figure we should maybe start out with like what you think makes a good baseball movie, Max. Like what do you think a good baseball movie has to have?
Hmm. It has to have like some kind of waxing nostalgia for just the game of baseball. I think
Mm.
like
Yeah.
just to like play baseball is one thing, but it has to be like, oh, I remember these days, or like some kind of remembrance to what makes baseball baseball. Because like, let's face it, in
Mhm.
America at least, like football, American football has really kind of taking over the landscape of sports. I feel like certainly with the Super Bowl and everything like that, people turn into football a lot more than they do baseball. But that's not to say that baseball is totally forgotten. It's just that it's taken on maybe a different place in people's minds and hearts, and uh, the movies that really work showcase why baseball means a lot to people.
Yeah. I think I would agree with that. I mean, we've been called baseball America's pastime, right? I mean, it's been around for a long time as a sport in our country, and it's been through some stuff, been some ins and outs. There's been some players strikes and various different things that have happened. There's been some scandals, some gambling scandals, among other things in baseball, and yeah, it's the kind of thing. I agree with you. I think a good baseball movie kind of reminds us what's great about baseball in the first place, which is like that kind of nostalgia for the kind of like pureness of the game, and it's different from something like football, as you mentioned. Football is like it's like running and hitting, and in baseball is like fielding and catching and throwing, and it's a very just kind of like different style of play, like the 9 innings. It's a very like the kind of thing that's a lot of fun to go and watch. Like I'm not a big baseball fan in general, but I do
Mm.
love going to a baseball game. There's something really special about being there in the crowd, the kind of like nighttime game or like kind of a lazy afternoon game where you can just kind of sit and watch the game and snack, and it's just there's something very special about it. And I think the fact that you kind of have like specialized players who are like you've got like pitchers who that's like all they do, and then you have like people who hit and people who like feel like I just think there's something really interesting about that too, where like when you think of like baseball movies, like you can have like general baseball movies where you kind of follow everybody on the team, but then there's like more specialized ones like where you're following just like a pitcher or a catcher or you know what I mean? Like I think there's that level of interest there in baseball that you can kind of like zone in. And because it's been around so long, you can do it as a period piece, you can do it as a contemporary thing. There's a lot of different options, and I think some of the movies we're going to talk about kind of run that gamut of being like contemporary, being historical, kind of capturing like a period or a thought or a kind of like essence of baseball from like people who are professional players to like kids. This, like we have a very robust like little league, baseball system in our country from like, you can start all the way, at like T-ball, work your way up to coach pitch, work your way up to little league, and like the little league has its own World Series. So, yeah, it's as you mentioned, Max, it's still a very popular sport, but maybe not necessarily as popular as it used to be, because I feel like people really like root for their teams during the season, but I don't see that many people who are like locked into the World Series, especially if their team like didn't make it into the World Series.
Right. Yeah. Football is like everybody turns in to watch the game. It's become like something else as opposed to like baseball, where it's just like, yeah, if your team's not in it, you're probably like not super psyched to watch it. And I think that kind of goes for a lot of sports outside of football. Um, I'm always like, yeah, I'm gonna watch. You gotta sit down and watch the game, and I don't think that's always the case with other sports. I guess like Evan, for us, like baseball takes another meaning because we're both in New England and we have Fenway Park, which is such a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful ballpark and so historical. Um,
Yep.
maybe we're
Yeah, the Red
born,
Sox.
yeah, maybe we're born in an area to kind of love baseball a little bit more than others.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I've got tickets to a Red Sox game in a few weeks from now, and I'm very excited to go. And it's been a few years since I've been to a baseball game, so I'm really pumped about it, And but I think like all sports movies, there's a good baseball movie can often be an underdog story, maybe about a rough and tumble team. The Bad News Bears obviously comes to mind as a kind of primary example of that. But it's also about like those kind of intense plays or intense moments, because like, when you watch a sports movie, it's not going to show you you're not going to watch an entire game. You're going to watch like the critical moments in it. And I think, baseball, what differentiates it from, let's say, like a football movie is that you have these kind of like showdowns where it's like, 1v1 situation. You got the pitcher there going against the batter, and it's really like they're staring each other down. There's this like intensity there of like every single, throw, every single, attempt at like every swing, every ball, every strike. Like there's just an intensity there that I think you'll find in a good baseball movie, where you kind of like everything else kind of like shifts away, and you're just like really zoned in on these like two people like squaring off against each other.
So yeah, I brought up this topic with Evan because like I had seen a recently released baseball movie. It did some film festivals. I think it was invited to the New York Film Festival last year, and that takes place in
Mm-hmm.
October. So it's been making its way around, but it finally was available on VOD, and I caught up with it, and that's Carson Lund's Eephus. And like Evan, this is like the definition of a baseball like hangout movie, because the premise is that in Massachusetts there's this ballpark where I guess these guys get together for exhibition games they're all ages, and they meet up and they have a league and stuff like that, and they're getting together for the last scheduled game at the ballpark before it's demolished, and they're going to be putting a new
Mm-hmm.
school there. And the movie kind of runs the gamut from the beginning of the game, and that there's the regulars that come and watch the game. You have this guy who takes out his lawn chair and he's sitting there scoring the game for fun, because that's what he likes, to go to the ballpark and score the games and watch them. And then you have some of the other baseball players' family members, or you have a guy who comes and sells food by the field. just kind of like hang out,
Mhm.
relaxing. But underneath it all is the game that's happening. You're not even. I didn't really care about like the score or like who was gonna win. It was more that they were going to get a complete game in and to see how far it goes. And it's so much fun, Evan. Like, the game goes for so long that they like in the final act they start like to bring their cars around to shine lights on the ballpark so they can try to play in the dark at this like old field. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's not it's a very like low budget baseball movie, but it accomplishes that feeling of going to the ballpark and like how important this game is for all these guys.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been hearing a little bit about this film, and I know there's a lot of. I'm an Emerson College alum. There's a lot of Emerson people who worked on this movie, so that's really awesome that you enjoyed watching it and spending time with the characters. Because you brought up another great point is that baseball is a very kind of like social kind of thing, especially when you're in this when you're either the minor leagues or you're just kind of recreationally playing. It is a very like kind of social hangout kind of situation. So I'm glad that the movie really worked for you on that level.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of fun because there's not like any big names that will like bring you to it. It's like I'm looking at its Wikipedia and it made like $500,000 box office, so it's not exactly like the movie that like I wouldn't be surprised if you've never heard of it before. And I hope that
Mm-hmm.
Evan and I talking about it now might get you interested in a baseball hangout movie, just like a bunch of guys who baseball means a lot to them. Getting together for this time to play baseball means something to them, and what they'll miss about getting together. It's a sad thing that their ballpark is going away, and they're giving it one last hurrah.
Yep. Cool. Well, I'll have to check it out. So let's see. What are some of the other movies? It looks like we both were interested in discussing A League of Their Own, which you just rewatched, right, Max?
Yeah, I rewatched it last night, and I think the reason why I watched it, Evan, is because I remember it fondly, and it's so quotable. I think
Mm-hmm.
the there's
Yes.
lines there's lines in the movie that I remember even before they came up. But I just talked about Eephus. Can you tell me what you remember about A League of Their Own? And of course, I'll extrapolate from there.
Yeah, sure. So if you're not familiar with A League of Their Own, it's a baseball movie. It's directed by Penny Marshall, and it's about this baseball league that is played. It's a women's baseball league that was playing during World War II, and I believe it's based on a true story. But this is, I believe, a fictionalized group of players. But it centers on Gina Davis and Lori Petty, who play sisters who are very competitive and end up playing on the same team and then against each other later in the film. And it's got a pretty stacked cast, some great supporting performances in it. And then of course Tom Hanks plays their manager in the film, and he's kind of like he's the washed out ball player who has been a drunk and an alcoholic, and he becomes manager of the team, and he's not taking it seriously at first, but then he realizes like, man, this team this is actually good, like we have a chance here, I should get my act together. So it's about their journey, and it's a yeah, it's a great movie. I rewatched this a couple years ago and forgot how much I enjoyed it. As you mentioned, Max, very quotable. I mean, I think everybody knows there's no crying in baseball. Like that is just probably one of the most quotable lines in movie history, but also in baseball movie history. And there's a lot of other really funny lines in the film. But yeah, it's a great ensemble piece, really great performances in it. Gina Davis is just fantastic. Lori Petty is great. Madonna, Rosie O'Donnell. I love everybody in this film. It's a great baseball movie. It's very exciting. It's funny. It's sweet. It's poignant. It's got a kind of it's got a wraparound story to it that makes me, very emotional. It's about them kind of like in present day, which would have been like, early 90s, like 1992. These women get back together for a reunion, and they're just kind of reminiscing about their time together, and then, kind of wraps back around to present day at the end and catching up with these people and where their lives went after this. and it definitely gets me misty. I'll say that just thinking about it.
Right in
And
the
it's a
feels.
great movie. Yeah, it hits me right in the feels. It's yeah. I don't know what else I can say about it. It's just a really well done movie. It's funny, it's sweet, and it's a great baseball movie. What about you, Max? What are
Yeah,
your
you
kind of reactions?
yeah, you hit the nail on the head, and it's funny, Evan, when I was thinking about this movie before I rewatched it, I was just like, "Oh, this is such a fun movie. I think that anybody would enjoy it. It's a good family movie." And then I was reminded by my
Mm-hmm.
wife that there's just like the whole movie is about sexism
Yep.
and what these women are facing. They're often told that they're not good ball players. They're just there to look busy, like look pretty and keep the men entertained while real baseball is not on. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's one guy who's in the like higher office that kind of believes in what the the ability of the women and their like how entertaining the games are, and that gentleman is played by actor David Strathairn, and he's kind of like he doesn't have a showy performance like Tom Hanks does, but he's certainly
Mm-hmm.
around. I think like Bill Paxton is in it very briefly, um, near the ending.
Oh, do you
Um,
mean Bill Pullman?
yeah, Bill Pullman. Yeah, the former president of ID4.
Yeah, he plays Gina Davis's husband coming back from the war. I think yeah, that reminded me. There's a great scene where Bill Pullman meets, Tom Hanks. Their characters meet, and it's a really nice meeting. And I like that this movie, there's kind of this central like platonic. There's a friendship at the center of it between Jimmy, who's played by Tom Hanks, and Gina Davis, Dottie, played by Gina Davis. And I like that this movie shows that they are friends, but it doesn't go to the like, oh, they of course they're gonna like fall for each other, or there's gonna be this like weird love triangle, when her husband comes back from the war. It's like they're genuinely happy to meet each other, and it's this like really cool situation where they can interact, but it's not that like really annoying thing that often happens in movies where you try to like force a romance or force, drama in situations where there doesn't need to be any.
Yeah, and what was another thing that was fun about this, Evan, that I thought, anyways, was like I didn't read why, but seeing that Madonna chose this for a role, like Madonna wasn't in a ton of movies in her career. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
this movie really didn't have like any singing parts for her to like really showcase. She was just playing Madonna the actress, and it's fun to see her in a movie like this. She's really opposite Rosie O'Donnell because they're supposedly like best friends, and so they share a lot of scenes
Mm-hmm.
together. Um, but yeah, it's cool to see her in this movie. Maybe she got past the script and she was like, oh yeah, with my name on this and Tom's, we can get this made. Um, because like so many of the baseball movies Evan and I might reference or talk about are of course about men's leagues, and A League of Their Own is definitely a look at baseball, but also from the perspective of a female team, which is definitely fun and exciting in its own way.
Yeah, and like you said, a very poignant commentary on sexism, and also on the fact that women were here in our country, like doing a lot of really important stuff while men were away fighting World War II, and they were not getting the credit for all of their contributions, and like how quickly people forgot that they were keeping the lights on. They were doing so many important things that we needed here to be done, that kept everybody going, including in this instance providing like entertainment and providing like a something for people to do to take their minds off of everything. Go and watch a great ball game and get invested in that. So
Now,
anyway,
Evan, I know it's been a while since you've seen the movie, and I don't know how I feel about the pivotal like Game 7 ending that they have in this, and I think you talked about it a little bit when we first started talking about baseball, like how you can really have pitcher versus batter, and certainly that is what happens at the end of A League of Their Own. It's kind of like
mhm,
sisters against each other. Like one of the sisters is a pitcher, the other one's like one of the best sluggers in the league, and
Mm-hmm.
certainly the battle between the two of them. And some part of me still like thinks like maybe the older sister played by Davis kind of like I it's hard for me to say like she throws the game because she's very competitive and she loves baseball, but like I also like somewhat see it because like one of the things that's underlying in this movie is this like the sister battle where the younger sister named Kit in this movie, she always feels like she's lesser than, and
Yep.
it's like her whole life is going to be poisoned by this fact that she's less than her sister and she'll never live up, and like maybe her sister like giving her a bone and the biggest thing that she could possibly do would change their life. And I don't know like how much that is really thought about, or like they kind of gloss over like if that's like the case in the finale, but like I don't know. Some part of me is like I could maybe buy it that she loved her sister more than the game of baseball, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and since I haven't seen it recently, I can't comment on the ending specifically as to whether we think that she threw it or not. But she does love her sister for sure, and I would think that she would think that her sister was more important than baseball, and so it's definitely it's viable for sure. But it could have just been that her sister was better in that moment, or just
Yeah.
luck of the draw. Who knows? But you're right. It is a very compelling aspect of the movie is the kind of sibling rivalry and the I think that kind of situation where Lori Petty's character it feels like she's always second fiddle to her sister, even though her sister I don't think is trying to do anything to cause that. She's the one that people are more interested in, especially in the beginning where Kit is just kind of like tagging along, and is she's not the one that they asked for, but they bring her along anyway because
Yeah,
she's
very
like, oh, I'm
very
coming too.
very much like Gina Davis's character is positioned as like not only is she great at baseball, but she's very pretty too. And like
Mm-hmm.
that the men in charge see that as a big selling point for their league, is to have a very pretty woman who is also great at playing baseball.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Should we talk about another movie? I know Max, you watched Bull Durham, which is a movie I've actually never seen, so I'm curious what you thought about that one.
Yeah, so Evan, this one is actually available via the Criterion Collection. I think just on Blu-ray. I bought it a few years back, and I had always heard like rumblings that like people considered this the very best baseball movie, and I guess it's debatable like what somebody feels like is their favorite sport movie of all time. I know there's certainly ones that
Mm-hmm.
I feel more strongly about than others. Like I guess like Rocky is kind of like an easy one to go to, or maybe for
Yep.
people of our generation, Mighty Ducks would be way up there just because of where we
Oh
were
yeah.
when we watched it.
Yep. That's for
Uh,
sure.
but I would have never watched Bull Durham when I was younger because this is definitely an R-rated movie. Susan Sarandon plays Annie Savoy, who is following this like local AAA affiliate known as the Durham Bills, and she goes to all the games. And every season, she kind of picks like one of the ball players who she's going to like lift up by having sex with him all season, and kind of supporting him that way physically and mentally as he goes along, and not too unsimilar to like Kate Hudson's character in Almost Famous. Like when I was watching it this time, that's what came to mind for me right away was Kate Hudson not saying that she wasn't a groupie, that they considered themselves more like band-aids to help these artists reach their new heights.
Mm-hmm.
So in the season of AAA baseball, she finds that she's most interested in this new pitcher played by Tim Robbins. His name in the movie is called Nuke Lelouch, and he has $1 million arm, but he throws wild pitches. He doesn't listen to his catcher. He could have the world, but he's just not ready for it. And
Hmm.
the ball club is so sure that like maybe they could get him called up to what they call in the movie, uh, they call it the show, which is being invited to play for a professional team. That they
Mm-hmm.
hire the services of a longtime catcher who's been in AAA baseball, and he had a few days in the show before. Uh, he goes by Crash Davis, and he's played by Kevin Costner. And not only is he there to like kind of help Tim Robbins' character become like the best version of himself, but he's also like in this like weird love triangle with the three of them because he's
Mm-hmm.
interested in Susan Sarandon, but like he won't get involved with her because she's with this young kid who he constantly calls meat. He feels like he's like has to like mold Tim Robbins' character into a pitcher. Uh, I don't know, Evan. I watch Bull Durham, and I'm like, how can you not be romantic about baseball? Because so much of it is just like the grind of going out for all these ball games. There's this scene that I absolutely love in the movie where the guys are on an extended road trip. It's been really tough. And they're like, "Oh, I'd kill for like a
Mm-hmm.
washout," which is like when you can't play because it's been raining, and they're like, "There's no way we're gonna have
Raining.
a washout. It's been too sunny." And so Kevin Costner's character is like, "All right, guys, I got this." And like they break into the ball field that they're supposed to play, and they turn on all the sprinklers and like flood the field,
Nice.
just so they can get a day off and not have to go play ball the next day.
Yep. I remember in high school I played lacrosse and being very jealous of the baseball guys when the rain happened because they got to go inside and not play, but in lacrosse we still had to play and got just sopping wet and muddy and gross and cold from all the rain.
Yeah, so like I think the movie's terrific. I mean, it's a different type of baseball movie. I mean, like I think there's a baseball movie for whatever mood you're in. Obviously, that the two other baseball
Mm-hmm.
movies we mentioned were like a very different kind of mood, and
Yep.
I think that there is a baseball movie for any mood. And if you haven't seen this movie, if somehow it passed you by, I'd encourage you to watch it. I think it's a really good time. The three main performances are really spectacular, and maybe you'll be a fan of the Durham Bulls while you watch the movie.
Yep. Well, maybe I should finally check it out. So, should we just kind of quickly talk about some of our other favorite baseball movies? Like, I
Yeah,
know we don't need to go like crazy in detail, but maybe mention some of the ones that we really enjoy.
yeah. Let me know like some of the ones that you might like to watch, Evan, outside of the ones we've already talked about.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can tell you one of the big ones when we were growing up was The Sandlot. That's one that a lot of people our age, I feel like, had an appreciation for. It's like a period piece about a guy kind of like from the 90s, kind of looking back on the 60s and his like schoolyard chums, and they, this crazy summer where they all played baseball at this sandlot, and it's got like a fun cast of characters, some of which were kind of like, I think, kind of famous from like being in the Mighty Ducks and some other movies of that era. Of course, we had James Earl Jones was in that. Dennis Leary is in it. Karen Allen. So some good people are in it, and it kind of has this like, I would say, nostalgic following, like the convention circuit. Like some of these people are very popular at like Comic Cons and things like that. But yeah, I watched that a ton of times because it's a fun movie. It's about kids hijinks and you know crazy summer. It's a fun baseball movie, a fun summer movie, coming of age kind of movie. And so yeah, that's one of the ones. Although I haven't seen The Sandlot in ages, if I'm being honest. It was one that I really enjoyed as a kid. I would lump another one in there that was like one of my favorite baseball movies as a kid, Rookie of the Year,
Hmm.
which is, did you ever see that one, Max?
Isn't it like it's like there's like a broken arm involved, and like that's why he throws like a
Y-
100-mile-per-hour fastball.
Yeah, it's funny. It's directed by Daniel Stern, like the actor, who
Hmm.
probably many people in our age group know from being, one of the two burglars in the Home Alone movies, amongst other things, and the narrator on the Wonder Years. But yeah, that's exactly the premise. Is that there's this kid and he falls and breaks his arm and it heals funny and he has the strength to pitch in major league. Like he can pitch like 90 mile an hour like fastballs and stuff. And it's got Gary Busey is in it. Dan Hedaya, it's got also got a pretty funny cast, and Daniel Stern is in it as well, and it stars Thomas Ian Nicholas, who probably a lot of people remember from his older years when he was in the American Pie movies. But yeah, it was
wasn't
one of
wasn't
my favorites as a kid. It's just a
wasn't
go
like
ahead.
the ending twist like he's pitching in the big game and like he falls and re-breaks his arm, and like he finds that he doesn't have the stuff anymore, but he has to find some way to get out of the game.
Exactly, that is exactly what happens. So yeah, it does have that kind of like intense moment at the end where he's like, "Ah, crap! I fell and my arm is not doing what it's supposed to. How the heck do I finish the game?" So yeah, you even though you got this movie's number, Max.
Yep. Yeah, it's like I don't know, I don't remember it very well, but like those two things I remember very vividly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a silly, fun kids movie. It's a fun baseball movie. It's this is the idea of a kid like somehow being able to throw fastballs, and suddenly having to be like on a major league team with like adults is just a funny premise. So I haven't seen it in many years like The Sandlot, but I do have a fondness for it because it's so goofy and fun. How about some of your other favorites, Max?
Yeah, so the ones that like I really wanted to, I guess like I watched Field of Dreams. I wouldn't call it like my favorite, but I wanted to mention it because like I watched it because of James Earl Jones passing recently, and um, Kevin Costner appearing in another baseball movie. That one, of course, is
Mm-hmm.
about him hearing some kind of like dreams from his field where they're like, oh, you have to build a baseball field here, and it's like something magical will happen, and people think he's insane, and he goes on this road trip and to find like James Earl Jones character and like how he's involved with this kind of weird premonition that he's hearing from the yonder about making a baseball diamond in his backyard. And I guess like the funniest thing about it, Evan, outside of like the rapport between James Earl Jones and Kevin Costner, is like uh, throughout the
Mm-hmm.
movie he's constantly told that he's insane. He's just like, you're ruining your crop, you won't survive, you
Mm-hmm.
are insane.
Yeah, it's been a minute since I've seen this, but it's he's trying to build it to like what Conjure, the Chicago Black Sox, or the White Sox that were involved in the like the Black Sox scandal or whatever or something, right? Am I remembering that correctly? Like Ray Liotta is one of the baseball players I
Yeah,
remember. He plays
yeah,
Shoeless Joe Jackson.
right. Yeah, Ray Liotta is one of them. And then like I guess like he wants to do it to some kind of reconnect to his father, which is like, the most baseball thing you could imagine. Like, oh, do you remember when we used to play ball outside on the yard? And the kind of conjures that kind of imagery, um, which is a very different movie from my next one, which is Moneyball. Which, like I said, there's a baseball movie for any type you want to thing that you're really interested in, and Moneyball is again based on a true story where Brad Pitt plays
Mm-hmm.
like the manager of the Oakland Athletics, I think it was, and
Yeah, Billy Bean.
yeah, and he came up with a system of evaluating players based on statistics, and he brought that team further than they had any kind of right to be based on like their salary cap, because famously, teams like the LA Dodgers and the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox, they have the most money to spend on players, so they're most likely going to always be in the playoffs, but by using these metrics and things, Billy Beane was able to bring this team to a level that they could never imagined.
Yeah, wasn't that called sabermetrics? Isn't that the thing that they came up with?
Yeah, I think it is. And Jonah Hill, who, he hasn't appeared in a ton of movies, at least dramas. I think outside of like The Wolf of Wall Street, this was like his other kind of big drama role that he tried to do, and he's pretty impressive in Moneyball too.
He is. Yeah, I remember really liking his performance. I remember liking Brad Pitt's performance, and I remember actually doing the junket when this movie
Oh
came
yeah,
out. So I did an interview with Jonah Hill, round table with him, and that was a fun interview because Jonah Hill, I think, he's known for playing very bombastic characters, but in real life, he is very like soft-spoken, quiet kind of guy, just like not how you would necessarily expect based on the types of characters you've seen him play. Especially this was kind of like not as long after like Super Bad and some of those more like kooky roles that he played, and
Jump
he's
Street
obviously had a
movies.
lot more body of work now. Yeah, to kind of show his range as a performer, but this was definitely a good performance of his that I liked. And yeah, there were some other good people in it, like Chris Pratt. I remember was in this, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, Robin Wright. So it's a pretty good cast. Yeah, Moneyball's a good one. Yeah, how could we talk about baseball movies though without at least mentioning Major League? Is that a movie that you enjoy too, Max?
I actually watched this for the first time within like the last 2 years, I think, because so many people said that you
Really?
had to, yeah, that like it was a must see, and I was like, that has
Yeah,
Charlie
that's kind of
Sheen.
essential baseball movie viewing.
Yeah, I was like, it has Charlie Sheen in it. Do I really want to watch a movie with him in it? And luckily, like that doesn't ruin the movie for me at all. I think I liked it. I maybe like it's one of those things that like the expectations are so high when you watch it that it's never gonna meet that. But I still thought it was pretty fun.
Yeah, I think I watched it because first time because it was on TV a lot. This one and Major League Two were on TV a lot when we were growing up. So that's what I ended up watching, I think, for the first time. But then I subsequently saw it later. It's a fun movie. It's got a good cast. It's got some like kooky characters on the baseball team. I mean, Wesley Snipes is great in it. I agree with you. Charlie Sheen can be kind of like hit or miss, but I think he's pretty good in this. But I think he's also playing kind of like it's a very like understated performance compared to other people who were in the movie, like Tom Berenger. I feel like is kind of like the heart and soul of this, as a kind of like aging catcher who's still trying to like hang on to things. And I like Dennis Haysbert as the kind of nutty like designated hitter guy who's got his like weird religious shrines, like the various things he's trying to do. But I also think another big part of this is having Bob Euchre in this as the commentator and adding so much hilarious color commentary for this. Like, you take someone who's a real life baseball commentator and put them in the movie, and I just think that is one of the things that works so well about Major League is like Bob Euchre brings so much personality and voice to all of the games that he's commenting on, and it just, I don't know, I think for me it adds a lot to the movie, a lot of hilarity and just kind of like atmosphere.
I'm glad you mentioned the people doing the color commentary for baseball. I mean, I think every one of the other movies that we touched upon does have a character in the role of kind of like doing this color commentary about what's going on the field, and I guess that like memories of that kind of come back from like listening to ball games on the radio and what have you, and knowing uh these announcers like they're your best friends as opposed to just like announcers that you hear once in a while.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, I'm bummed you didn't like Major League more, but I'm glad that you finally caught up with it because I do feel like it's kind of essential baseball movie viewing. It's one of the like the big ones that people talk about when they talk about baseball movies.
Hmm.
I think the only other one I wanted to just give a quick mention of was 42, which is the Jackie Robinson biopic that was Chadwick Boseman played Jackie Robinson in it,
Hmm.
and I just wanted to mention it because it was kind of like I feel like it was an underseen underappreciated movie. It's a really solid biopic, and I think it's a really well done baseball movie with some really great performances, particularly Chadwick Boseman before everybody really knew who he was. I think he's excellent in it. Harrison Ford is great in it. Uh, Christopher Maloney also great. There's some really excellent supporting performances, and one in particular that is a real standout from Alan Tudyk, who plays a very racist player that he plays against. And yeah, I thought it was really well done, and just not enough people saw it or talked about it. So if you like Chadwick Boseman, I recommend going back and checking this one out. I think it's definitely worth your time.
Yeah, and then the other one, like I was told to watch, which I haven't seen yet, is this movie called Sugar from 2008. It's by the
Mm,
directing film pair of Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck, and they're probably best known for writing, directing Captain Marvel now, and they also did stuff like Mississippi Grind. I've heard that it's a very good baseball movie. Um, I'm looking forward to kind of checking out. I think it was released by like it's an HBO Films kind of movie distributed by Sony Pictures Classics, so it's definitely smaller, but um, I'd like to see it.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Sugar. It was definitely one of the ones that I think the year that it came out, I missed it, and sometimes I don't end up going back to stuff that I heard was really good in here when I missed seeing like the press screening of it. But yeah, it was. I've heard a lot of good things about that one. All right. Well, I think that wraps up our conversation on baseball movies. Unless there was anything else you wanted to add,
No,
Max.
I think that's it. I think like of all sporting like genres outside of maybe boxing, I think baseball is pretty well covered in sporting movies, and I think there's a baseball movie for whatever mood you're in, and you'll probably have a good time.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. There's a lot out there in terms of baseball movies. So yeah, check out one of the ones we talked about if you haven't seen it. Or we'd also love to hear from you listeners. What are some of your favorite baseball movies we may not have covered? Okay, so before we move on to our what we've been watching, I know we like to take a pause and just do what Max, I know you like to call station identification. So we'll just mention that we're out there on social media, and you can find us in a few places. But I would say we're probably spending the most time on Blue Sky these days. Um, or I believe it's the pictures on Blue Sky. But if you can't find it's either it's the pick pod or it's the pictures on our social media. We're also, I think, on Threads. We've got a Letterboxd, and I think those are like the main places that you can catch up with us. You can find the show anywhere you get podcasts. We're also over on YouTube, and I think, Max, you've told me we've been getting a little bit of traction there in terms of people finding us and listening to us. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I think the other big thing we like to tout is we have a newsletter that Max writes it covers a lot of different topics outside of the things that we just talk about on this show. So one, I know he does Max does a lot of interviews. He talks about what he's been watching. He talks about Blu-ray releases. There's a lot of anime. There's a lot of kind of gamut of things that he's talking about. So Max, what are some of the upcoming topics that people can look forward to, or stuff that's already out there that they should check out in the newsletter?
Yeah, so the most recent thing was kind of an extension of the summer movie box office game where I picked the top 10 movies that I think are going to perform well at the box office this year. And if you missed our episode where Evan and I picked 5 movies apiece, that is also on that newsletter. You can just click on the YouTube link and listen to our picks as well, and kind of get a summer preview and a summer game mixed all in one.
Nice. Yeah, I'm actually gonna check out one of the movies that I picked this week. I'm gonna go see Thunderbolts. So I'll have to let you know how it is when we reconvene for our next episode.
Yeah, and so we shared where you could find the podcast, but you can find me on Blue Sky if you look up Max Colville on Blue Sky. I'm also under the username maxcolville.com. You can find me there, and I'm there. I also log my movies on my Letterboxd account if you want to keep up with what I've been watching. Um, and in our family house, we turned on Bambi the other day, and I could honestly tell you, I don't think I'd ever sat through Bambi from beginning and end, and that was kind of a treat. But Evan, I know there's a bunch of places where people can find you and listen to you elsewhere. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, sure. You can find me every week over at Spoiler Piece Theater, which is a weekly film podcast I do where we review new movies. Spoilers be damned. But you can also find me on social media. I'm in all the big places, Blue Sky, Twitter, Threads, etc. Letterboxd as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
All right, so I'm kind of take over the wheel for a second here as I try to get Evan to participate in the movie game again. I have
I'm a willing participant, listeners.
I have the movie in front of me in question.
Okay.
That's why I didn't have to look it up. Um, we're going to start with the first tip, where this was voted number 6 in AFI's 100 Years, 100 Laughs series.
Oh, okay. All right.
So this is a funny film. It has an Oscar-nominated performance by Madeline Kahn.
Oh, is this Young Frankenstein?
No.
Okay. All right.
It also has villains who have the names Slim Pickens and Harvey Korman.
Oh, is this Blazing Saddles?
It is Blazing Saddles.
Nice. I got it faster than usual.
Yes, you were on the right track of Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles.
That's really interesting because I'm surprised to hear that Madeline Kahn was. She's great in it, by the way. I love Blazing Saddles. I haven't seen it in forever, and but I didn't realize she was nominated for an Oscar for her performance in it. That's so funny.
It's funny, like I picked this movie just for fun, but Shannon and I actually went to the musical the Performing Arts Center the other night, and we saw uh, a new adaptation of Some Like It Hot, which is probably the number one AFI comedy, I'm sure, and uh, that story I think holds up. I don't think the music doesn't really make sense because like it isn't inherently a musical, but that's another film that I quite love, and I think it's hilarious.
Nice. Well, I'm happy that I got the movie this time faster this time around. I'm feeling good about that. Fewer clues got me there.
Yeah.
All right, cool. This is the fun game I'm enjoying, Max. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, I'll keep it kind of like mainstream stuff. I won't bring out like the foreign films.
Well, that'll be helpful because
Yeah.
there are fewer things I've seen in that camp.
Yeah.
All right, well then let's switch over to what you've been watching. And Max, tell me about Sinners, the Ryan Coogler film, which we discussed at the top of the episode.
Yeah, so Sinners is Ryan Coogler's latest movie. It stars Michael B. Jordan in a dual role as the twin brothers known as Smoke and Stack. And
Oh boy.
yeah, um, they they are hanging around with their cousin, who is known as the choir boy, or no, the preacher's son. Sorry, and
Mm.
he's supposed to not be playing like these heavy jazz blues, but his cousins kind of like take him along, and it's quickly discovered that the cousins uh, come back into town with some money and an idea that they're going to buy this old facility to make their own like juke and jive joint. And they kind of like get a whole bunch of people involved. Not only the cousin who's a jazz singer, they get another guy played by Coleman Domingo to come into the club and perform some music. They uh, meet up with some other people that they used to know. One of them is a young woman played by Haley Steinfeld, and
Mm.
you get all these cast of characters at this jive joint where they're playing some really awesome jazz music, and lo and behold, there are some vampires that are outside of their jive joint, and they live by the rules of vampires, and they can't go into the place unless they're invited in, and so they do most of their damage when people kind of leave the facility. But outside of like just how it's directed, which is really a lot of fun, there's obviously a lot of layers to this film because um, the first people who are like vampires are very pointedly like white Irish people, and
Mm-hmm.
they are like, "Oh, come join us, come like be like assimilated with us," and a lot of like under like racial undercurrents and tone. It's fun that Coogler can make a movie like this that can be still a blockbuster and so entertaining, but also um, touch upon so many different concepts that are exciting and valuable to him. And I guess like part of the film's messaging is like owning your own things, and that's maybe why he felt it was so important that like if he was going to make this movie that he would be able to like eventually own this project that had like so much of his thoughts and DNA into it.
That makes sense. That's definitely sounds interesting. I mean, I think there's definitely, given what you're saying, that's I think of a movie like Devil in a Blue Dress and how so much of that film focuses on Denzel Washington's character owning a home, and that being a really big deal at a time when black people in our country couldn't afford to or could not, were denied opportunities for home ownership. So I could see how that kind of similar in a similar vein why that would be an important theme in this movie about being a black business owner and carving out a space for yourself and feeling like the pride and the ownership of it and the support from the community and that being a big deal. So I see what you're saying. Makes sense.
Yeah. But it's a lot of fun. I think like as much as like they try to like make it so that you can tell that the two Michael B. Jordan characters apart, I think I still got them a little confused at some point. So like
Mm,
which one is supposed to be which, because each one of them has their own love interest too. So
gotcha.
when things get mixed up, it's like, what's really going on here?
Well, I'm glad to hear you enjoyed it. It sounds like a fun premise for a movie.
Yeah, maybe I'm not like A plus over the moon that some people were. I'm more like a B plus, like a good 4 out of 5 movie. Like, and that's why like Rotten Tomatoes is kind of broken that way, where as long as you like a movie, it's positive, and like I don't. It's hard to imagine people wouldn't like say like this is at least entertaining or scratches an itch or is an exciting original movie, and that's why it's partially why it's so well received outside of like people just like enjoying it too. Not to say that they can't enjoy it.
I mean, I've been looking at the IMDb page and it's been just kind of playing the trailer with no sound, and I just saw a very muscled Michael B. Jordan just firing off a Tommy gun, walking toward the camera, and I thought, yeah, it's kind of hard not to have fun with a movie with scenes like this in it.
Yeah, and then Evan, the other movie I wanted to talk about quickly is that due to the 4K re-release, I watched Tombstone for the first time, and this one has Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer and tons of other character actors. I was surprised at how many like actors I recognized um,
Yeah.
in this movie,
Yep.
and
Stacked cast.
yeah. And this was another movie, Evan. I guess like people would say like they probably saw on TNT a lot, but I was not one of those
Oh yeah,
people.
that's how I saw it.
um, I think what really tricked me at first was just like how wet Val Kilmer is in this movie. He plays
Mm-hmm.
Doc Holliday, who is suffering from tuberculosis, and he is just like a sick man this whole movie.
Yep. Yeah, he's so sick, but he's still such an epic gunslinger, despite the fact that he's like basically knocking on death's door throughout like the entire movie. It's definitely a really magnetic performance from him. Yeah, be curious to hear more about what you think of this movie though, because yeah, it was very heavily played on TV. It's got a stacked cast, but like, how much did you enjoy it as like a western or like overall as a movie?
Yeah, I think like the period that it came out was like the early '90s, and there was like maybe a divorce from westerns for a while. I think then Tombstone came out, and you had like Unforgiven, of course, which is the Clint Eastwood Academy Award winning film. Um,
Mm-hmm.
this is fun. I think like it gets more fun after like the famous OK Corral sequence. Um, that is kind of what the movie is based on. Kurt Russell's playing Wyatt Earp, and him and his brothers go and try to um, remove some of the guns from this renegade group known as the Cowboys, and they, get in a shootout. After that, it gets slightly more interesting. I think like why like Kurt Russell like going around town like as this like vigilante like trying to kill all the cowboys is just ridiculous and fun at the same time. There's like this ending narration that is just like the funniest thing ever, and I guess like Screen Junkies did an episode of Tombstone like a week ago, and I didn't watch it till I watched the movie, but they bring a point of like Kurt Russell in the movie has a wife, but he's smitten with this other woman, and like so much so that his wife kind of becomes like an afterthought, and
Mm.
like there's like a narration that explains what happens to her in the last 2 seconds of the movie, where it's like, oh yeah, she OD'd and died. And
Oh
like
man.
if you like look up the real history, that's like how it happened, because Wyatt Earp was like a real dude, and the story is based on historical fact. But yeah, it's very much like Wyatt Russell's character. I mean, not Wyatt Russell. Kurt Russell's character is very much like, oh, I'm not gonna cheat on my wife. Oh wait, I really like this other woman. Yeah, forget my wife.
Whoops.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great one-liners, and I've certainly seen gifs of the movies. There's like one of the famous villains. He has this line where like Kurt Russell's character is leaving town, and he's like, "Just so you know, you won," and he's like, "Well, bye." Yeah, he's like totally non-pulsed.
Yeah. I mean, there's "I'll be your Huckleberry." That's
Yeah,
another
yeah.
one, another very quotable line from this. Well, I'm glad you checked this one out. You finally can cross it off your list, because
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Well,
been a while since I've seen it, but I remember broadly enjoying this, even though I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of westerns.
that's a good thing we didn't do our other one that I proposed to you earlier, which was Clint Eastwood, because he's the Western guy.
It's true, he is. I mean, I like some of the westerns that he's been in though. Like I
Yeah.
love the The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is one of my
Yeah,
favorite
$3
movies.
trilogy.
And, yeah, love those films. Unforgiven, also excellent. But yeah, it's good point. Good we didn't pick that other topic.
So you told me before we started that you've been watching a lot of TV. So what TV have you been watching?
Yeah. Well, let's see. I checked out the Netflix miniseries Adolescence, which I feel like I heard a lot of people talk about, and then I was like, okay, I'll sit down and watch it. Just a few episodes. And so it takes place in the UK. It's about there's this 13-year-old kid who's accused of murdering his classmate, and it's all about kind of the aftermath of all of it. Like the first episode is all about him being arrested, like the SWAT team kicking down his door and arresting him and taking him to the station, and his parents being shocked and horrified, and like everyone's kind of like reeling from this. And other episodes kind of like focus on different topics around the case. And yeah, I was very underwhelmed by this, if
Oh,
I'm being
really?
completely honest. Yeah. I think the first episode So like they make a really interesting narrative choice throughout the episodes where they do each episode as a single take, where
Mm-hmm.
everything is just, it's all one take. So interesting choice, I think. And it creates some interesting situations, but I feel like the show kind of makes it seem like it's going to be the show that's kind of like procedural and thrillery in the first episode, and it just delves into like drama and like it's morose and it's just I feel like torturous at the end. Like the whole last episode is all about like how his family is doing on the outside. Like, he's in prison, and it's like all about like how they're living in the community and everyone hates them, and it's a really sad show, and it's sad episode, and it just feels like torturous to the viewer. It feels like way too long, and I'm just like I just we finished it, just felt like sorely disappointed. Like, really, this is a show people are talking about? It just feels very like one note, and that's just like sad. But I do think that first episode was interesting from a procedural element, and seeing how police in the UK do things very differently, and they treat
Mm.
suspects with a lot more respect and dignity in terms of like laying out their rights and making sure that they understand procedure and like walking them through everything. And it was just like, wow, this is just night and day compared to how police treat people here. So that was like, I think, one of the interesting takeaways from it.
Yeah, I always find movies that like are of our like court systems really interesting. Like the Palme d'Or winner, Anatomy of a Fall, is very much like I think it's like the French court systems, and I'm just like it's so
Yep.
fascinating to see how their judicial system works compared to ours.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. That's an interesting element in any like movie or TV show on other court systems. So yeah, that was kind of a bust. And then the other one was a show I just like happened to be catching up on that came out like forever ago, and I think it's on the cusp of having another season actually. Nine Perfect Strangers. It was a show that I caught up with on Hulu with Nicole Kidman, Michael Shannon, Melissa McCarthy, Luke Evans, Samara Weaving, Bobby Cannavale, like a pretty stacked cast of people. But it takes place at like a wellness, like a boutique wellness retreat where Nicole Kidman is running it, and she plays this like kooky Russian lady, and all these other people come there, and there's just she's using like way out there like to call her methods unconventional would be putting it lightly. And so it's like all about these like really horribly damaged people trying to work through their grief in this just bonkers setting and methodology that is just like unhinged, fly by the seat of your pants, reckless, you name it kind of situation. And yeah, I mean, I dug it overall. I think Nicole Kidman is fun in it, and I think it has a really strong supporting cast. I really like Michael Shannon a lot, and he's great in this. But I also really like Melissa McCarthy, and it's one of those
Hmm.
kind of like more serious roles that she plays, which is not like her kind of like broad, you know, silly, over the top comedy. And so I really liked that a lot. I also really liked her character's interactions with Bobby Cannavale's character, and I really like him as a performer. And so yeah, I was really about this for like the cast and the kind of interpersonal situations that were happening, and the way that all these people would kind of like cross paths through these, bizarre therapeutic rituals. Like there's one thing where they had them like dig their own graves and like sit in like a shallow grave and think about their lives. So
No, no,
yeah,
it's funny that you
I
mentioned that
I like
that
it.
Melissa McCarthy is good because, like, I think like the two movies that I like her the most in are probably well outside of Bridesmaids is probably like Spy and Can You Ever Forgive Me, and um, that's probably because I like to see comedians do drama roles.
Yeah, I do too. But I also think that I think Melissa McCarthy's problem is that she does too many movies with Ben Falcone, and I think
Yeah.
her real life husband, and I just don't think he's very funny, and I don't think they have a good sense of their own comedic strengths in a way. I think they're much better when they have someone else writing the material for them. So that's my feeling on Melissa McCarthy, because I think she has a lot of talent, but it's just not channeled properly in most instances. So it just comes off as like broad, silly, and just not, it's not good. So yes, I would recommend Nine Perfect Strangers, especially if there's a new season coming out soon. Why not? Why not catch this one before the new one comes out? So yep, that's what I've been watching. A lot of TV, not so many movies. I'm gonna try and get back on the horse this week though. I've got some movies I gotta watch for Spoiler Piece, and so hopefully return to watching movies again.
Yeah, you're gonna go see Thunderbolts too, right? So.
Yep, yep. Gotta see one of my movies that I picked for our box office game. We'll be interested to see how things go for that. That's for sure. But yeah, this was a really fun conversation about baseball movies. We hope you enjoyed it, listeners. And yeah, we'll would love to hear what you think. We'd love to hear some of your favorite baseball movies. Let us know if you've seen any of the movies or TV shows we talked about in the What We've Been Watching section, or if you have any thoughts about the news we talked about, from Sinners to some of the Star Wars news. Always love hearing from you guys. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
All right, thanks. Bye.